Welcome to the Procedural Operations Series for the F-18 Echo Super Hornet, provided by Vertical Reality Simulations. You're joining me once again aboard Viking 103 for the 5th video in the series. This video comes out of navigation and basic systems and moves into target identification and tracking using the various radar displays. Having started this before, I'm actually going to go back a step to where I was at the start of the first rendition of this video. As I am now, I am in nav mode. Apologies for the lighting in here. Most of everything is backlit in this aircraft, so it's a little bit easier to see. However, our current local time is night, and I and the other aircraft, one from Canadian Forces that's assisting me in this video, are on the VATSIM network right now, so we are connected and working in local time, which is dark. So if you would like me to do a daytime video, please complain at me and I'll make a daytime one. However, I think everything will be relatively visible, if not more visible in this than it would be during the day. So currently we're flying on a simple autopilot hold out over the Atlantic Ocean in the Atlantic Test Range in nav master mode right now. There's 3 master modes: nav master mode, air to ground, which we won't go into right now, and air to air, which we will go into. There is a limited radar functionality in nav master mode. It does allow you to toggle track wall scan and velocity search, as well as the range wall search. That is the most common, probably most versatile radar mode. However, I'm going to come out of it and go into air-to-air master mode. You see our HUD declutters up here, which allows us to have more tactical information displayed. If you don't have things set on your DDIs, you tend to have them replaced by tactical displays, notably this one. I've already set it to the HUZI, but if I decide that I don't want the HUZI, then all I have to do is go to what I actually want, which will in this case be my situational awareness screen. This is very useful in identifying and marking targets. So we're going to go into some of the basic radar modes here. By the way, if you hear another voice in the background, that's the Canadian Forces 6 aircraft that's assisting me and is sitting on a tactical net with me, so to speak. He'll be assisting as my tracking target. We're going to remain fully safed in this. I'm not going to fire on a friendly unit, obviously, even though I might designate him as hostile. During the course of this, we're going to remain fully safed, though we are in air-to-air engagement mode. We'll just go through some of the means of using and identifying targets in the radar mode and using the situational awareness displays, perhaps as far as selecting some means of processing air targets. As I come around, one thing that I should point out is something I didn't really go into. In the HUZI, you have tack hands and waypoints and objects like that. There is a waypoint that I have currently set, not require, currently simply set as waypoint 16. It is the Preppy intersection. I had that put in by GPS coordinates on the fly while I was getting my way up here. That's where this Canadian Forces ship is orbiting. That's also sort of our reference point. One thing I can do is for each waypoint I can hit the waypoint designate button, which if you see on a more worked out version, if I designate the waypoint, that's the waypoint that I've put in, waypoint 16 right there. If I hit waypoint designate, suddenly that becomes a diamond. that indicates it's a bullseye or a reference waypoint for air-to-air or air-to-ground operations. It helps in coordinating ground-controlled or AWACS-controlled intercepts and in referencing targets and other information with other aircraft. Now that that's designated, unlike the other waypoints that will now show up in the situational awareness screen, and you will see now there is a rank 1 target that indicates the priority of it. Our first target that shows up, or the closest, most apparently important target to the flight computer that shows up, will be designated 1. In range wall scan, if it's not designated as anything else in the hostile, ambiguous, friendly, or unknown, or HAFU series of markers, it will simply show up as a white crosshair on the radar. And you're seeing that right now. That is, I happen to know the Canadian Forces ship that's currently orbiting that waypoint. Before I target him or go into anything directly dealing with processing or identifying targets directly, I'll go into some of the basic functions of the radar. Sort of work my way around the display a little bit. This 2B, 4B, or 6B. There's also a 1B that actually shouldn't be accessible in range wall search. This indicates the elevation bars per scan in use by the radar, and basically the vertical adaptability of the radar in tracking targets above and below your current altitude. SILD is for silence. This temporarily disables the radar. You note the Maltese cross comes up that you normally see when you are weight on wheels. The radar is no longer transmitting, though any target that was currently viewing here will remain on the scope until it ages, and that's an important thing as well. You can erase data on tracks, or you can allow them to age out, and that's what this 16 is right now. This is the number of seconds that tracks are kept in the computer's history after they're no longer actively being given as a radar return on the scope. In this case, I tend to keep it fairly high, because if I make a nice long turn as I orbit a location, I like to be able to pick up looking at a track that I already knew was there, especially if I've designated it already. I don't want it to go away and become undesignated. On the right side, we have the range in range wall scan. This is the x-axis and the y-axis are, in this case, very self-explanatory. Azimuth, your left to right bearing versus the radar of the ship, and your range to that target. You'll notice is 0 down here. That's the minimum range, which for this aircraft should pretty much always be 0, and 80 is the maximum. So you'll see as I toggle down, we now go down to a 40-mile range, 20-mile range, 10-mile range. This operates exactly the same in track wall scan as the, track wall scan. Again, azimuth and range. However, we will go into velocity search, which is entirely different. That vertical axis is no longer range, but is velocity, either away or towards you. With that, we'll go back to range wall scan, since we're sort of working off of that. You can reset a lot of the data that's in the scope, including track data. This data sublevel that's here, this allows you to declutter. There should be an option here as well for the BRA, the bearing range altitude, which is the most important feature in describing an enemy or unknown target. Basically any target you might want to reference, whether it's friendly, hostile, or ambiguous. The BRA is the bearing range and altitude to that target, in this case to the launch and steering target, which is whichever one is selected or prioritized as the number one target. That should be down here. For some reason it's not showing up. It may be because this is an older version of the aircraft. Color allows us to have colored markers for friendly as green, hostile, red, etc. There's some other stuff here that can be gone into in a little more depth by yourself. Explore, have fun with it. Most important after that, this 140 degrees is the azimuth range of the radar sweep. 140 is the maximum for range while scan. Track while scan, it's actually dependent on a couple other things, but track while scan likes to have it at 80 and it tends to default at 80. Sometimes it won't let you go above 80 degrees. For some reason I'm not being allowed to edit that. I'm not sure why that's happening. I'm going to cycle that display real quick and just make sure that it comes back okay. If not that, I might cycle the radar, work my way through the systems and see what could be the cause of this. That actually may well be it. Yes, okay. That is multi-systems integration. That's a sort of advanced computation of multiple factors of radar and other, multiple sensor integration, other sensors that the aircraft's using to determine location and data of other targets. I'm going to return to the radar and when I get my brain back together. And you'll see that this now, our azimuth, continues to expand as we go up to 140. Track while scan maxes at 80, while velocity search maximizes at 80 as well. However, range while search, we can get up to 140. This is the pulse rate, and it sort of defines how certain targets will, how likely it is certain targets will be picked up by the radar. Typically, default works the best. You can read into more in the documentation for the aircraft if you can get your head around it. So with that, I think we're gonna turn and maybe locate our friendly target here, who will be back around to the north. I'll detect him first in range while scan. You'll see again how that shows up, and then I'll show you what that looks like when we transition to track while scan and range while search, and then transition to track while scan. And you'll see how it sort of characterizes his aircraft and automatically designates it as a target worth paying attention to. Again, not all of this functionality is available in the nav master mode. For a lot of this, you do have to be in the air-to-air master mode to fully designate and prioritize targets. And as you can see, we're now turned back towards our bullseye, which is up there, and you'll note that on the unlike on the SA display, on the radar, the bullseye does indicate true north by an arrow from the bullseye on it, which is really quite helpful. As we turn back towards this, that's a little over 80 miles away, which is the maximum range of our radar. So I'm actually going to transition to our velocity scan and see if we pick up a return. We may be able to get a return on his aircraft out there and you know, at least get an idea of the cruising velocity and the azimuth of his aircraft. And again, this is not, this scale and this number that is editable here is not range. It is the velocity scale. So that allows us a max viewable velocity of up to 2,400 knots closing or diverging velocity, though 2,400 diverging from an aircraft traveling in excess of 200 knots would be fairly impressive. Not seeing anything there. I'm transitioning back to range wall search to see if we can locate him anywhere. Can't force Viking contact. Can't force Viking. You're still in orbit over Bullseye.
That's good.
Right. Just speaking to the other pilot, making sure that he's still there and hasn't suffered any sort of an issue requiring him to return. Since we're evidently having a little trouble picking up on this. Again, I can always check. I'm fairly sure that that's the Preppy intersection, but I can always go back to my Fuzzy and verify that the waypoint 16 is the one that we designated there. Okay, that's the case. We're going back to SA. We're going to give the ship a little bit of motion to maybe expand the azimuth and see if there's something we might be missing out there. And look, we have a data block, and you saw instantly the raw hit. That yellow block transitioned into a white crosshair as the computer decided, hey, this is our priority number one target. That's going to be marked as our launch and steering target, though it hasn't been designated as a HAFU target yet. I can do that in the situational awareness screen. You'll see that happen shortly. However, from range wall scan, range wall search, we're going to transition to track wall scan, and you'll see it now designates it as the priority one target in the radar as well as on the situational awareness screen. I can step to that target with the undesignate command, which comes up as the keyboard shortcut Shift-Delete. Now that is actually designated as the launch and steering target, the primary target. I can also designate using the same method, Shift-Delete, or by manually slewing to it and selecting it. I can designate a target as the secondary radar target, and if the launch and steering target disappears, that secondary target then becomes primary and becomes the launch and steering target if radar contact with launch and steering is lost with the first one. And I should be able to, I can lock onto that and put it into a spotlight mode where it constantly illuminates that one target. It's a single target track actually, or I can go back and look at it in track wall scan. right now this gives us a basic idea of the, again, I don't have the ability to look at the bullseye directly, I don't have it laid out for me, but we can see where it is on the SA screen, we can see a block for it on the HUD with the closing velocity and the range, and I can see based on that that it's about 010 degrees for about 70 miles. So 010 for 70, now moving right to 020 for 70. The 31 on the right is the altitude in Angels, so that's 31,000 or Angels 31. That number on the left, the 0.8, is the Mach number of the aircraft, calculated by its altitude as estimated by the radar, and its divergence speed from our own aircraft and our ground track. So it does a lot of calculation to get that Mach number, but that shows, again, the full bra for this target is about 015 for 70, Angels 31, type unknown, track east, as it's now moving east of the bullseye, and doing about Mach 0.8. So that allows us to designate a target in for some reason I seem to be having some issues with working the velocity scan radar. I should at least be getting a primary hit on that chip, but it's not coming back at all. So I'm going to go back to range wall scan. Again, look, we get it back. It deleted the old track, so it redesignates, it relocates and designates the new track. I can go back to track wall scan, and it's done that already. Another thing that I can do to designate a target directly is to go to my situational awareness screen and step to that target. It doesn't designate it in the radar in the same way. With the radar, if I have the priority, the DDI priority set to this DDI, again, shift delete brings me back to that aircraft, and now we're in high update on that. I can once again go into single target track directly, or I can set an engagement mode using a certain weapon system that will allow me to enter into a direct single target track based on that weapon system. And again, you can see the block starts blinking off in the direction that it is off of the HUD once that aircraft disappears from HUD. However, if I go to SA and I step to that aircraft, I can now define this as a friendly or hostile force. If I define it as friendly, it becomes a green item, and you'll see the block shows friend. When we go into weapon systems, you'll see that that kind of changes how a couple things react when we put the aircraft under the gun, so to speak. Hostile, again, it changes our target, and now we have that marked red diamond symbol still showing the bra information to the left and right of the target, and now no longer showing friendly. It simply shows as a block on here, and it will allow us to engage that aircraft. You can engage hostile and ambiguous and unknown, but you cannot engage friendly. So, redesignating him as friendly, we will maintain a little bit of a watch on him, and I think we will come back to you in another video very shortly as we move on into air-to-air engagement with the weapon systems.